okay? But I tell you, we don't pick the day. It just, when we reach that point of step zero, then that's our day. And with the exception of the fact that I was born in the first place, that is the most important day in my life, okay? Probably offending my wife who is sitting here, most important day would be the day that we got married. Now, we're not married if I don't stop drinking. In fact, I'm not even standing here, okay? I'm dead. I went to a funeral Friday. His name was Benjamin. He was 50 years old. Friend of, a son of a good friend. But you know what? Ben doesn't have to drink anymore today. A little bit of family. My mother was an alcoholic. She died at age 52, drank herself to death when her liver ruptured in her abdomen and the poisons from the liver went to her heart and she died at age 52. It is very difficult to understand how this little Cajun girl, dark hair, dark eyes, dark complexion, could end up in that posture. It is very difficult to understand that this little Cajun girl, who was an incredible Cajun cook and could clean a house within an inch of its death, could end up being some sort of creature who would do anything for the next bottle of cheap wine. That's how insidious this disease is. She died at age 52. But Lucy doesn't have to drink anymore today. My father was also an alcoholic. He died at age 70 when he failed to survive open heart surgery that I survived a couple years ago. My oldest brother, 6 years older than me, his name was Al. He died at age 54. He drank himself to death. He died in a typical physical surrounding of very poor, a house that was falling down around him. My other brother, who was 5 years older than me, died of alcoholism as well. So there's 5 people in my family, it was. Actually, I had a little brother and little sister born after me. If you have any medical knowledge, you might know what the RH incompatibility factor is. And it doesn't exist anymore because it can be dealt with one shot. But back then, and when I was born in 1943, which makes I'm 81 years old. Of course, I don't look 81, right? Last time I said that, a good friend of mine, well, she's not a friend anymore, she says, "No, Bob, you look like you're 91. So I'm gonna get her back. So the RH factor incompatibility builds up as each child. I was a blue baby, barely survived. My little brother, little sister born after me did not survive childbirth. They would have been alcoholics as well. See, medical science says and has proven that when both parents are alcoholic, there's about a 90% chance that I will be. And wherever that other 10% came from, I don't know, I don't care, because I was born an alcoholic. But it doesn't matter. A little bit of education about the disease. Doesn't matter whether a person drinks or drugs himself or herself into addiction, or whether I am, like me, born that way. Once you cross that line, and I don't mean you, once a person crosses that line into addiction, there is no return. There is no cure. Get that in your head. So 4th of July 1979 is my sobriety date. So on the 4th of July, 3 months from now, whatever that is, 4 months from now, I will have 45 years of continuous sobriety. And that day, the 4th of July, is the first day of my 46th year. And then we're gonna go from there. So let me talk to you about the applause at a funeral while it's in my head, because if I don't, I'll forget, right? 4 months ago, Deacon was at a funeral, presided over a funeral, is that the right word? Officiated, whatever that word is. And at some point in time, maybe after the homily, the people applauded. When is the last time, or have you ever heard applause at a funeral? Well, I have. About 15 years ago, the guy's name was Joe Bernard. He died with about 13 years of sobriety. His funeral was at Mary Queen of Peace Church, the old church before they built the new one. And Father William Belinsky presided, and he came to the coffin and he opened Joe's big book, which happened to be sitting on top of the coffin, and he read how it works. The whole thing. And what's the first sentence of that? Rarely have we seen a person fail. Let me say that again. Listen. Rarely have we seen a person fail. So he puts the book back down on top of Joe's coffin and he says, Joe did not fail. And he started to clap. And the entire church erupted in applause. That's the win. You said it. That's the win. There is a saying floating around Al-Anon and AA, a double winner. You could call me that. I go to a lot of Al-Anon meetings. As you can tell, there is pretty good cause for me to go there. But I ain't gonna win nothing until I die. Hopefully that's not too soon. But we shall see. We shall see. So this idea of alcoholism in my family has put a scar on my heart, a wound on my heart that will never heal. And I know some Al-Anon friends are going to say, I gotta get to a position where that can heal. I won't, and I can't. So I've quit trying. And that is the manner in which I treated my mother. How mean and how ugly I was to her. I didn't know as a teenager. She was very sick. She was a sick person. Not an evil person. She was an incredible cook. She never spoke a word of English until she was almost a grown lady. Never went to a day of school in her life, could not read or write. But damn, she could cook. My daddy was a shrimper. So sometimes times were a little hard. And if he didn't come in and sell the shrimp, or maybe give us a few pounds of shrimp for us to have something to eat, we didn't have anything to eat. So one day we scrounged, my father had not come in yet, and my mother scrounged around the house and found 25 cents. She sent me to the grocery store. I think Morel's was open then. And I bought a pound of hot dogs for 25 cents. Not 25 cents anymore. And then I came home and my mother smothered an onion, made a little roux, and made hot dog stew. It was wonderful. Cooked some rice. It's one of the best meals I ever had in my life. Because we were hungry. My mama cooked something for us, me and my two older brothers. That's the kind of person she was. It's the kind of person she is until this disease changed her into something that was unrecognizable. Did the same thing to both of my brothers. The brother that was 5 years older than me, he was a mean drunk. He'd go into the bar rooms and get drunk and then get in fights. I'd go in the bar and get drunk, but I'd just sit there on the bar stool until I fell off, you know. I wasn't looking for anything. I was looking for my next drink. Nothing else. So you've heard a little bit about my family. I guess I could tell you also that my son is a drug addict and an alcoholic. And one of the Al-Anon meetings I go to is the parents' meeting on Sunday afternoon at 4:30 at the back porch on New Hampshire Street in downtown Covington. If you have that issue, I recommend that meeting highly. It still doesn't take the worry away from me. It's still, I'm young in Al-Anon, okay? I understand I've got so much to learn. But I don't know that I'll ever get there. I don't know that I'll ever reach the peace and the serenity that some of my Al-Anon friends have. In AA, I'm up here. I understand that I can't drink or I'll die. I mean, I understand that. In Al-Anon, I'm somewhere else. My son now has 6 months clean and sober. He's 57 years old. He's been in jail a number of times. He's been in hospital detoxes a number of times. His last relapse was over Thanksgiving week, and it was bad. Into the hospital where they detoxed him for 24 hours. I thought he had it made. And I know better, because we don't have it made. But somehow, I thought he doesn't have it made, I don't have it made. So what about me? It's enough about my family and stuff, okay? Let's talk about the success story. I mean, my family all died of this disease, all 4 of them. Now, a brother that's 5 years older than me died of cancer on his death certificate. That ain't what he died of. You see, I had the same cancer. He wasn't taking care of himself. All right? I was taking care of myself. I caught the cancer early on 20 years ago, and today I'm cancer-free. Oh, by the way, Myrna is also cancer-free as of, today's Wednesday, as of Monday. We did. She had colon cancer, which had spread to her liver, and that is usually not very good, but some incredible medical treatment at the Oshner, Maine, Benson Cancer Center, and we're good to go. So, little sidebar. But in any event, my brother did not take care of himself. He wasn't a good father, he wasn't a good grandfather, he wasn't a good husband, he wasn't a good brother, because he was drunk all the time. Then when they found the cancer, it was too late. He fought it. He went to MD Anderson, being referred out of the cancer folks in Jackson, Mississippi, where he lived. Jackson, Mississippi has an excellent medical center there. In any event, he still went to MD Anderson. The doctor at MD Anderson said, "Sir, do you drink?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "How much?" He said, "Well, a fifth of whiskey and a case of beer a day." The doctor said, "I'm not treating you unless you quit." He said, "I quit." You see, faced with that sort of thing, an alcoholic like him can quit. But that don't come very often, and don't depend on that, because it doesn't come very often. Now reflecting back, I know that I'm an alcoholic from birth. Actually, before birth, as we believe, I believe, that we are who we are at conception. So 9 months before January the 18th, 1943, the day I was born. Ooh, that's old, huh? I was an alcoholic because my father and mother were. So I was doomed. At age 13, the first time I drank alcohol, I got drunk. I used somebody else's money to do so. So I drank, I got drunk, and I got in trouble, and I had to lie and cheat to get out of that trouble. So that is the story, okay? That's my story. I could just stop there, but I got some more stuff to tell you. I drink, I get drunk, I get in trouble, and I have to lie and steal and cheat to get out of that trouble. And us alcoholics are very good at that, okay? We are connivers, we are liars, we're like squids without a backbone because we can squirm out of the simplest little hole that you can think of, and when we're on the other side, hot damn, I can do it again. And we do it again. We always tell ourselves, I tell myself, next time it's going to be different. And it usually is different. It's worse. The literature in our book, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, says it never gets better, always worse. I first got, well, let me rephrase that. The best thing that happened to me, one of the best things, maybe the bestest thing, was in early 1975, my wife went to an Al-Anon meeting. Because at that Al-Anon meeting, this is 1975 now, not 1979, so you see what I'm headed for here. So she went to this Al-Anon meeting and told them about me. I don't have a resentment for that. That needed to happen. And they told her, more than likely, yeah, honey, you got an alcoholic on your hands. And they could have told her, you know, those damned alcoholics never get sober. They'll be unfaithful to you. They'll spend all your money. You'll lose your house. You'll be on the street with your 2 children. They could have told her also to kill me in my sleep. Some of them probably wanted to do that, but anyhow. But no, they suggested to her that she in turn suggests to me that I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because you see, they know, whoever they are, the Al-Anon people, that it works. Not 100%, because we are the stubbornest people in the world, but it works. So she came home. One night I came home, not so drunk, and she said, Bob, I'd like for you to go to AA. And I said, okay. You see, there's 2 operative things there. I came home maybe not drinking at all. That would mean I was broke. I didn't have any money. Or I was just tired. Sometimes I just get tired. And she said, I would like for you to go to AA. It's very important. Because if you tell an alcoholic that he or she has to do something, what are we going to do? Say that out loud. The opposite. That's how obstinate we are in the midst of our disease. That's how mean we are. And I don't mean mean in the context of getting in a fist fight in a barroom. I mean, we're just mean. You tell me what to do, go to hell. You think I'm drunk today? Let me show you, bitch. Let me show you what drunk really is. But I can thank the God of my understanding that whatever happened that evening, I was okay. I said, yes. And I went to some of those AA meetings, West Bank Marrero group of AA, and that meeting also has an ancillary side-by-side Al-Anon meeting. There's very few that occur, so that couples can go, one guy or girl can go to the AA meeting and the other member of that partnership can go to the Al-Anon meeting. On Tuesday night in Covington, which is my home group, meets at 7:30 at First United Methodist Church on Jefferson. There's an AA meeting at 7:30. Simultaneously, there's an Al-Anon meeting. And the Al-Anon meeting gets to sit up in the lounge where they have the big sofas and easy chairs. And we're sitting on hard metal chairs. It's probably what we deserve, or worse. So I went to that West Bank Marrero group. Sometimes I went to that meeting half drunk, because I wasn't getting it. I'm smarter than them. I'm a graduate of Tulane University. I'm smart. And I never did the things that they did. Yet. And then something happened. I started to listen. And I heard some stuff that I could relate to. I said, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. And I stayed sober from that's early 1975 until December of 1978, when I was offered a drink around Christmas time, and I took it. I was too embarrassed to say anything about it. Not today. And I didn't get drunk that night. I was upset with myself. I was mad at myself. But over the next 6 months, from December 1978 to the 3rd of July 1979, was a spiral downward, drinking more and more and more and more and more and more. And on July 3rd, 1979, I drove an automobile from Panama City, Florida to New Orleans, pretty intoxicated. It took me 8 hours. Keep in mind, 1979, the interstates were not finished. So I had to drive through Pascagoula, Mississippi. If I wasn't drunk, I have to get drunk to drive past Pascagoula. Because there's a paper mill there, okay? And when I woke up on the morning of the 4th of July, 1979, I had what is called a moment of clarity. I had a vision. You see, the disease of alcoholism is a disease of perception. And when I'm in the active stages of my disease, I don't perceive the world as it really is. I perceive the world through alcoholic glasses, okay? That everybody is out to get me. That everybody needs to give off the highway so I can drive. Why is that little old lady in front of me in the grocery store line counting out her pennies? Like I do now. So I didn't see the world as it really was. One of the great writers, great speakers in Alcoholics Anonymous is a guy by the name of Chuck Chamberlain. Chuck Chamberlain was in California in the very beginnings of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? He knew Bill Wilson and the whole gang. He brought literally hundreds of men into Alcoholics Anonymous in California. He owned a large business. He lost it and then built a smaller business back up after he got sober. And his talks were compiled into a book. The name of the book called The New Pair of Glasses. Because you see, as you get older, you're probably gonna have to get a new pair of glasses, right? Yeah. You can shake your head, yeah. I go to Dollar Tree and buy mine, but anyhow. This recovery in this disease can be analogous to getting a new pair of glasses. Oh, now I see. I did that. I got drunk and passed out at the wheel of a company car. in early 1969 and almost killed my unborn daughter. I did that. Yeah. Didn't stop me from drinking. So in July of 1979, I began this journey that has been absolutely wonderful, okay? But I know today that there is no cure. That this lady who died a month or so ago, the deacon presided at her funeral, and people applauded. See, if you don't know anything about this disease, you might be offended by that. At Joe Bernard's funeral, he was a retired New Orleans policeman. One half of that church was police department and family members. The other half of that church was Al-Anon and AA members. And I was sitting in the back. We got to be pretty good friends. I was just crying like a baby when the applause was going on. Because you see, he won. Man, and I'm going to win. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm here tonight. I go to meetings and treatment centers. I go to my own meetings. I just believe that recognizing the fact that this disease killed my entire family, it's just simply not going to kill me. Okay? I've already outlived every one of them for 10 years. So, there is no cure. Half measures avail us nothing. It's all or nothing. In the doctor's opinion, in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, at the very beginning, the doctor who treated Bill Wilson to get him started in his sobriety was a guy by the name of William Silkworth. He was a specialist in the treatment of alcoholism and drug addiction, even in the 1930s. And he ran a place called the Towns Hospital, where there was either floors or I don't know, dealing with alcoholics and drug addicts, okay? And he writes in the book Alcoholics Anonymous what is called the doctor's opinion. And when I'm talking to alcoholics in treatment centers, I'll tell them, that there are words that are in our book that are absolute. And what I mean by that is no wiggle room, okay? And in the doctor's opinion, there's a sentence that actually has 3 absolutes in it. And what I mean by that, you cannot wiggle out of these words. And it says this: the only is a word that offers no debate. Only. Suggestions we have to offer is entire. That word entire means 2 things. So it's a double negative. It means none forever. That word means none as to quantity, 0 alcohol, forever. Okay? That's hard. The forever is hard. So in the beginnings of the recovery of alcoholism, we talk about a day at a time, a week at a time. We tell folks to slow down, okay? Slow down. You can't do the 12 steps in 12 days. Can't. Treatment centers will give these people a taste of the 12 steps in their 28 days. And that's good. But then, when you get out, you get a sponsor. And the sponsor drags you through the steps. Lovingly drags you through the steps. There's something about this disease, and it is a disease. No cure. It's 100% fatal if allowed to run its course. There are three parts of this disease. It is a disease of the mind, the body, and the soul. I'll briefly talk about it. The disease of the mind. You see, this is the only disease in the world that tells me I don't have the disease. In the midst of my alcoholism, I couldn't see. I needed a new pair of glasses. It's a disease of perception. I couldn't see that I was, not me, I'm not an alcoholic. I know, you know? So it's a psychological disease that tells me I don't have the disease. Second part of the disease is disease of the body. And that's easy to understand because you see, when I drink alcohol, there's a release of endorphins in the physiology of my body, and then I want more, okay? And I really want more. It's not the same as eating a nice ribeye steak, that's good, but I'm full. I'm done, except I get my cheesecake, but anyhow, I'm full. When it comes to alcohol, there's no such thing as full. Because when I drink that first wonderful glass of Seagram's VO on the rocks, sitting at the bar, and I just don't drink it, you understand? I have an intimate relationship with it. I sip it, make love to it, and then when it's empty, I always order VO on the rocks and a glass of water. Because you see, when I'm finished drinking the VO, I pour the water over the ice and I rinse the last bit of alcohol there is over that ice. Then I eat the ice too. Because I ain't gonna waste one molecule of whiskey. Then I start the process over. And I forgot what I was talking about. It's a disease of the body. I drink one of those and I want more. And when I get that one, what do I want? More. And then when I get that one, I want more. I have no control over that. That's the physiology of my brain. I was born that way. And there's no way that that can be fixed. Okay? The Geek Squad cannot reprogram my brain like they can fix my computer. But my wife messes up all the time. I do it, okay? They can come in or do it remotely, they can fix it. Cannot reprogram my brain. I was programmed at birth. Any alcoholic or drug addict that's programmed by drinking and drugging themselves into addiction, still the same thing. We have crossed that line, there ain't no coming back. There was this guy in California, and I'm not standing on his dead body, let me finish. He had a business called Passages Malibu, okay? And he's on television doing commercials. Young man, 35 years old, he said, I used to be a drug addict and I'm cured. Come to my place in Malibu, California and pay me $10,000 a week and I can cure you. There ain't no cure. So guess how he died? An overdose. I'm sorry for his father and him, but when he says over television that he can cure me, just think how many people he may have killed by letting people know that there might be a cure. There ain't none. And the worst part of this disease is a disease of the soul. You see, what I would do is I would take the essence of who I am, the essence that makes me me, the fuel that fires the furnace of my being. I would take that and I'd give it to alcohol and say, here, you run it. You see, this wonderful little Cajun girl, Lucy Ordoin, would give her soul to alcohol. And she turned into something that was rather ugly. And I don't mean visually ugly, that too. See, in the midst of my disease and other people perhaps like me, we're walking around like that silly program called The Walking Dead. Empty on the inside. This disease eats me from the inside out. Like one of those brain-eating amoebas we heard about. That's alcoholism. That's what drug addiction does. You see, who I am, I'm a physical being, true. But I have a spirit, I have a soul that I believe will exist beyond my physical being. And this disease damages my soul. And I'm in the process of repairing my soul. Please note I said the process, because I ain't there yet. So this disease of the body, mind, and soul is a horrible disease. It's an evil disease. Maybe even to the extent that it's the devil himself. God, it is the only disease that tells me I don't have the disease. It's the only disease in the world that makes other people sick. Literally sick. Because you see, when my son goes into a relapse, I turn into something that I'm not. I can't handle that. I can't handle that. I should know better. So this is the only disease that literally makes other people sick. Working on that. Working on it. But I can promise you this. I'm gonna die sober. Now we're not supposed to say that in AA. We're supposed to live one day at a time. I'm looking at you. Let me see the whites of your eyes. Look at me, stare at me. I'm gonna die sober. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm gonna kick and fight, and scream and scratch and go to AA meetings and come here and do whatever I need to do. Maybe you'll come to my funeral too. I'm inviting you.
You'd mind.
Might beat you. Anyhow, thank you for your time tonight. Any questions? Yes, sir.
On July the 4th, 1979, what type of epiphany did you have? Or you just woke up one day? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You were drunk the night before. What happened? Just tell me what happened to you. What made you stop drinking at that point?
I didn't have much of a hangover because the drinking I did, I drank all day, starting in the morning in Pensacola, Florida, okay? And I drank, and last booze I got was at the intersection of US 49 and I-10. A 6-pack of beer I put on the seat next to me and had the ignition go on and keep it a little cool. And when I woke up the next morning, my wife and the 2 kids were not at home. They were probably at one of my favorite places, which is the Schwegmans, big grocery store on the West Bank in Harvey. Because you know, at the Schwegmans, they had a bar. And they had some of the best and coolest beer that there ever was. And I'd go sit at the bar and she'd do the grocery. But anyhow, I had what I would call a moment of clarity, a visual clarity, okay? I realized what I had done the day before, and it didn't make any sense to me. That's a moment of clarity. That's a new pair of glasses. I had a vision, okay? So that, can't hear me. So that I literally saw what I had done the day before. Most of the times when I would wake up after a drunk, I would be so hungover that I needed to drink. There's a great country song called Sunday Morning Coming Down, where Chris Christopherson says, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. A lot of times I would wake up and have to drink as quickly as I could to stop me from going into DTs. That morning, I was hungover a little bit, but I could see what I did yesterday. And what I did was drive an automobile 8 hours, relatively intoxicated. And I saw that. And I took a step back and said, I'm an alcoholic. Nobody but an alcoholic would do such a thing. I'm an alcoholic. So it was a moment of clarity. It was a moment that I saw what I had done the day before. And at that time, I surrendered to the disease of alcoholism and won. The cravings went away that day and have never come back. You see, cravings is a strong word. Oh, I see something once in a while, I wonder what that tastes like. Oh, I can't drink. Fleeting moments of curiosity, maybe. One of the things that really makes me mad is they took some really good whiskey like Crown Royal and put stupid flavorings in it. I'm glad I'm not drinking, that would make me mad, but anyhow. It was like I could see what I had done the day before. I surrendered and won. A lot of times when I'm speaking, I talk about Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. You're old enough to remember that fight. Do you remember it?
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of the 6th round, Roberto Duran says no mas. Turns his back to Sugar Ray Leonard, tells the referee no mas. No mas means no more. He quit and he lost the fight. In fact, when he got back to Panama, he had to have a detail of police to protect him. The people in Panama was going to kill him, because they think very highly of their boxers and their soccer team, that sort of thing. See, he surrendered and lost. I surrendered and won. I told alcohol to go to hell. Okay? Go bother somebody else. And I'm telling you, I've never had a craving in 40 years. I am no longer an alcoholic who's trying not to drink. I'm an alcoholic who don't drink. See how I crossed that line? Boy,
Yeah.
that's good. Because an alcoholic trying not to drink in the very beginning, that's tough. See, when I go talk to people, like in treatment centers and the jail or whatever, I have a difficult time making a connection. First of all, I'm old. I'm not making fun of that, I am. And I have all this sobriety, and they're looking at me like, you just came in from Mars. And I try to tell them, wait, I'm 1 or 2 drinks away from dying. I'm still one of you. That's how I try to make a connection.
You said that the cravings were removed, and one would ask, well, if the cravings have been removed, then why do you still go to meetings?
Because I don't want the cravings to come back. You know, it's like every meeting I go to is another brick in the wall between me and my first drink. It's just building sobriety, maintaining sobriety. And when I'm in a meeting, and you never know when you're going to hear a pearl of wisdom, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I make it, even though I'm, got all this sobriety. In fact, there's a guy who I thought might be here, John H., and maybe he's not feeling well. John, John. 50. John H. on October the 23rd, last year, reached 50 years sober. Wow. What a guy. I've been knowing him not that long. So I can't not go to meetings. In fact, it's been a week or 10 days I haven't been to a meeting. And what'll happen is, see, my wife will notice that, and she'll say, isn't it time for you to go to a meeting? Pastime. And there's a fellowship there. There's a friendship. There's people who know me. When Deacon introduced me, I clapped a little bit, and that's fine. I'm literally, people used to clap when I leave places, so I could get loud. I wasn't a mean drunk. That's a very interesting question. If the cravings were taken away, I realized I didn't have it made. It's a little difficult for me to answer that, except that every alcoholic reaches that point on their own. Every alcoholic's bottom is his or her own bottom, and bottom is step 0. Step 0 is 12 steps of recovery in AA or NA, and all the 12-step programs come from Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? A book written in 1935, okay? It is the second largest selling book in the world. How about that? What's the first?
Bible.
The Judeo-Christian Bible. Only that has sold more copies than the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The book Alcoholics Anonymous has been transcribed into 100 languages. And it's still going. It's an expensive process. The AA home office, called the General Service Office, does that. In fact, they just put out a big book in Navajo. Navajo has no alphabet. How do you put a book out in Navajo without an alphabet? You do it verbally on tapes or CDs. Remember the movie Wind Talkers? World War II movie? That was Navajo Indians speaking in their language that the Japanese they couldn't decipher that. So the book is in Navajo, but it's in their verbal language.
Do they make one in Braille?
Yes, of course. The first one was French, and then Spanish. Okay. I just got a couple of Spanish books and brought them into the jail. A couple guys were asking me for it. In fact, the back porch gave them to me. I was going to buy them, they gave them to me. So.
No, I'm said in Braille, like.
Yes, oh yes,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. Not sure.
You had said earlier, what was your epiphany that caused you the thing, whatever happened? And you might have been looking for a thing, but you used the right word, an epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
The word's translated a divine manifestation.
Yep, that's
You
what
can't,
it
and you
takes.
just can't explain it
That's
sometimes, you know.
the answer to it all,
Yeah,
right there, that's it.
It was a divine.
Well, I didn't really
manifestation.
get into the spiritual aspect of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a very spiritual program, okay? Deeply, deeply spiritual. Think of it this way. The 12 steps of AA, okay? If you're gonna build a Roman arch is very sturdy. And what is the stone that goes right up in the middle? What is it called?
The cornerstone.
No, sir.
Keystone.
Say that loud.
Keystone?
It is the keystone. Cornerstone is at the corner of the building. Keystone, absent of the keystone, what happens to the Roman arch? It collapses and falls, okay? When I talk to folks, and I put those 12 steps as 12 stones, and I leave a gap in the middle, and I say, that's keystone, and it represents God. It represents the God of your understanding. Okay? Absent of that, there is no recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Okay? In the first 164 pages of our book, the word God, or something that means the same thing, such as Great Spirit or Spirit of the Universe, or however it's referred to in the verbiage of the book, that word is there 270 times. Okay, in 160 pages, it's there 270 times. That is the most difficult thing for a new alcoholic to get his or her brain around. The fact that, number one, there is a God, that God is personal to him or her, and absent of some kind of relationship with God, their chances of recovery are slim and none.
Exactly.
Because our relationships to each other are disposable if we don't have something holding us together, and our Creator is what holds us together. That's my opinion. But I wanted to ask you about that though, because there's a story. My favorite part of the big book are the stories. And you're gonna have to help me out here because I don't read it all the time. But there's one in there, I think it's called The Man of 50, who's a car salesman, and he loses his car dealership, he sells it to somebody else, and then he's working for the guy that he sells the dealership to.
It's Bill.
Yeah. And
No,
then
Jim. Sorry.
Jim. And then he goes off into the country to show off a car to sell, and he ends up in a little diner where they happen to sell whiskey, and he eats a ham sandwich on white bread, no doubt, because of the time that it was written, right? And a glass of milk, and it was so good that he gets another one, but he puts some whiskey in the milk, and then he does it again. And of course he relapses that way. But when you talk about body, mind, and spirit, the stories in the big book, I mean, they connect it for you, but you miss it because you're not focusing on it in a more meditative way, in a more prayerful way. But that story really strikes me because he's eating all those carbohydrates. What is alcohol? Yeah, he's eating all those carbohydrates. He's drinking the milk. He's putting them, because if you put the whiskey in the milk, it's not whiskey.
You don't get drunk as fast.
You don't get drunk as fast. And every time I hear that story, every time I think about that story, I just get so excited about what they did in this book, and how there's a story in there for each person, that you can't just read the book and go through the steps and say, okay, that's it. It's like a Bible in that if you hang on its every word, if you just reflect on the words in there, it says so much more than the words on the page.
More will be revealed as we do it. I've been leading a Bible study for the past 15 years, and the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. Okay, the depth and the profundity of Scripture. The same is true of the big book. It's not the same. This is the story of Jim. It's not one of the stories in the back of the book. It's in the text.
Yeah.
It is so important it's in the text. And he owns the dealership, loses it. He also has a World War II record. No such thing as World War II. When the book was written, he has a war record. Because in the book they talk about the war. Well, they say the war because there was only one war. And it wasn't called World War I because World War II hadn't occurred yet. But anyhow, so he does exactly that. And he used to own the dealership that he's now working for, which makes him mad.
And I think he lost his wife too. She left him. If I'm not
Well,
mistaken,
he had regained all his family back and was in good shape. And yeah, milk, pour the whiskey in the milk, and it's going to be okay.
To me,
See, that's what we
if
call.
there wasn't divine inspiration in that story, it wouldn't be in there. The way that story speaks, as an addiction counselor, when I worked as an addiction counselor, the way that story spoke to my people in group, It was
Yes.
like, there was no way the story would work, there's no way half of the stories in the book would work if there were not divine intervention woven into those.
Well, when Bill first got sober, in the birthday of Alcoholics Anonymous is June the 10th, 1935. He got sober in about December of 1934 in Towns Hospital. And he says, if there is a God, let him show himself to me. And at that moment, he had a deep and effective spiritual experience. It blew through him like, almost like what I had in the morning of the 4th of July. It was like, wow, I'm an alcoholic. It was an epiphany.
That's the
It was
answer.
amazing,
That's the answer.
you see? And it was a total surrender. In Towns Hospital, God, if you exist, make yourself known to me, and a cool wind blew through him, lit up the room, and he was changed forever. But it was in December of 1934. Then he proceeds to try to help people, pulling them off bar stools and fussing at them and yelling at them and all this kind. That don't work. He's despondent. Keep in mind, yelling doesn't work. Okay?
Understood.
So he tells his wife, Lois, after several months, it's not working. I can't get anybody sober. And she says, one of the most important things that's ever been said in this entire paradigm of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. She said, yes, it's working. You're sober. Because you see, all of this time that he was trying to help somebody else, he was keeping himself sober. And then when he gets to Akron, Ohio, and that deal falls through, and he's in the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel, and there's a bar right there, and boy, he wants to go in that bar so bad. He's pacing around. Finally, he makes a phone call. He knew at that point in time he had to talk to another alcoholic. That's why there are sponsors. That's why there are phone lists.
Sponsor's born.
The sponsor was born,
Right.
you know? And finally, 2 days later, he was able to make contact with Dr. Robert Holbrook Smith. And Dr. Bob says, I'll talk to this bum for 15 minutes. And I'm going back home, like around Mother's Day of in May 1935. Okay. Well, they talked for about 6 or 8 hours. Because you see, one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, all with the right information about myself, can win that alcoholic over. Whereas a doctor can't, a wife can't, a mother, a father can't.
Okay.
Well, they can. Can't's too much of a strong word. But another alcoholic who's been there, done that. A comment about the bottom. We talk in here, I hope we were enjoying ourselves. The bottom of an alcoholic is particular to the alcoholic. In some AA meetings, you'll have a situation where they try to out-bottom each other. You see, I'm a high-bottom drunk. Never lost my wife, my kids, my job, my health. Never went to jail, never went to treatment center. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic, huh? No. See, it was my bottom on that morning. This is not a contest. That's what I tell the people when I'm talking. This is, you win. I don't care what your bottom is. Are you there? Now look them in the eyes. Are you done? or you're at your bottom, because you know, well, a person dies sober, but there are some who don't. Because see, there's a place that an alcoholic or drug addict can go from which there is no return. You know that. We don't know when that happens, but our soul is damaged so much that it cannot recover. I know that. I've seen it in AA. My little friend Tana died at age 52, locked herself in her little mobile home with a bunch of vodka and beer and drank herself to death. Try to help her. So there is a place. If you've experienced that in your life, I'm sorry for you. But know this, it's a disease like any other disease. It is not a moral deficiency. We do immoral and bad things for which we have to pay the price and make restitution and do all of that. This idea of bottom just bothers me when I'm talking to people and they start comparing. Like I did in the very beginning in 1970. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't know, I'm not an alcoholic, I drank and show up at the meetings after. I'm surprised that they even let me sit in those meetings. See, that's the real love and the real care of Alcoholics Anonymous. There was an old guy in a meeting. His name was Ashton. Ashton was a real Cajun, a heavy Cajun accent. He couldn't say the word alcoholic, he said alcoholic. I hear it in my head right now. Ashton saved my life. Even though I relapsed after that, that morning when I got sober, Ashton was talking to me. Not in his voice, but in those words. So Bob, come back next week. Yeah, Ashton, I'm coming back next week. Leave me alone. But I came back next week. Those are the kinds of people that we can find in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you have a husband, friend, other that's out there drinking, he can find, or she can find, those people in Alcoholics Anonymous that can help. Been there, done that. Don't compare. I'm a high bottom drunk, but so what? These guys who come in there, well, I've been in 9 treatment centers. If I've been in 9 treatment centers, I wouldn't dare admit it. You're just too dumb to get it. When I tell them, what do you want, a medal? I tell you, I can get ugly with some. What do you want, a trophy? 9 treatment centers? And your family paid for all of that? Excuse me? No. Never a surrender. I can do this. I can do it. And I can do this alone. No, we can't.
Step 1.
We must. The AA has I'm going to stop now.
It's okay.
AA has a triangle as one of its symbols in a circle. Okay, I don't have a token with me. Keep losing my tokens. A triangle, like a Roman arch, is a very sturdy geometric figure, geometric structure. Okay, and in AA, it's recovery, service, and unity. You remember those words? Well, I have a triangle. My triangle. And on the bottom is me, Bob. You see, I deserve this treatment. I deserve to be sober. And so do you, and so do whoever your alcoholic and addict is. We deserve it. God loves us too. In fact, maybe more so. So on the bottom of my triangle is the Bob. On one side is Alcoholics Anonymous. And on the other side is what? God. God of my understanding. Any one of those pieces are removed, and the triangle then is useless. It falls down, just like the Roman arch. And I have to maintain all of those. Not in a posture of thinking I'm better than you or better than anybody else. When I go in an AA meeting, I have to humble myself. And say, Bob, shut up and listen. Okay? Because I'm not any better than anybody else in there. So I need to maintain that. And I need to maintain my connectivity with AA and my personal relationship with God. I told you a minute ago that I lead Bible studies. I do it at St. Jane Chantel Catholic Church in Avita Springs. God, it's been a revelation for me. We finished for the year. We're going to start something in the fall. Deacon Mike Talbot and I do it. Anyway. Questions? Keep going. Listen, I thank you for your patience and